Hello, lovely Armbar Audio fans. This is John Kearns. Unfortunately, Tim's feeling a little under the weather today, so we're not doing a full video episode as normal. This one's going to be audio only. As you can see, this is Impressions of Impact, so I'm going to throw it to Tim in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is your host for Impressions of Impact and co-host of Armbar Audio, Tim Farley, giving you the Impressions of Impact for the episode that aired April 18th, 2019. The show opens with a recap of how Cage has been screwed over the past couple months. All of Johnny's matches, Johnny Bravo has reffed, the referee who turned on Cage last week. The first match of the evening was Scarlett Bordeaux and Fallah Bahh versus the Desi Hit Squad. This was a really fun match. The Desi Hit Squad didn't want to wrestle Scarlett as they view women should be traditional homemakers. Bahh has charisma even though he only says one word. Scarlett hit a head scissors takedown and opened the ropes for a suicide dive by Bahh. She then hit a diving crossbody onto the outside to the Desi Hit Squad. Scarlett did a stink face to Raj Singh, but Rohit pulled him out and wanted to take one from Scarlett, so Scarlett told him to close his eyes, and of course, Fallah Bahh gave him a stink face. Bahh and Scarlett win with a piggyback bonsai drop. This was quite entertaining. We then get a hilarious Diener promo with Redneck Training. They debut next week. Tommy Dreamer talks about the similarities and differences with he and Madman Fulton, saying they are both insane, trained under similar people, and have listened to madmen. But Tommy's madman had a cause. Fulton's is just for violence. He can match violence for violence. Match 2 was Moose versus Desmond Xavier of the Rascals. Moose rubbed Dez's head a couple of times as to show he's still a boy in a man's world. Moose overpowered Dez a lot and snake-eyed him. Moose went for a go to hell, but Dez roned out of it. Moose caught a tope con hero and smashed Dez into the steps, then powerbombed him into the other Rascals. Trey grabbed Moose's foot and Moose threw him across the ring. As the ref was focused on Trey, Wentz hit Moose with an enziguri that led to a roll-up pin by Dez. The saga between Moose and the Rascals isn't over, as Moose will most likely take on all three at Impact Rebellion, but that's just my guess. The match was solid and did a good job at keeping the viewer interested in the big strong bully and the three athletic jokers. Kiera Hogan and Rosemary are in an unspecified location. Rosemary says mortals don't listen. Kiera says as long as there's two of them, then there's two in the fight against Su Yung. Rosemary says so be it, and attacks Kiera and chains her up and says now there's only one. Moose is furious over his loss and hints at my former assumption. Tessa says as great as Gail was, Tessa is better now at 23 years old, and she's the greatest women's wrestler on the planet, on a fast track to be the best knockout of all time. She says that she's going to tell Robert Irvine how jealous and insecure his wife is. She's at Robert Irvine's restaurant. She asks the restaurant where he is and takes a bite out of a chicken leg, spits it out, and says it's disgusting. She goes in the back and takes silverware from a dishwasher and throws it all over the floor and tells him he's fired. She takes a knife out of a chef's hand and says, "Are you threatening me?" He explains he's the chef, so she says, "So Robert's a fraud just like his old lady Gail." She then puts a bunch of food on the chef and pours soup over the manager's head, saying send a message from Tessa to Robert and Gail. What an awesome promo. What an egotistic, vicious heel. Tessa can do no wrong in my eyes, and she is my personal favorite female wrestler. Soon after, Gail is interviewed, and she says that Tessa is an entitled, spoiled brat. She sees it because she was once that as well. Pressing charges won't teach Tessa a lesson, but Gail Kim will come Impact Rebellion. Match 3 was Madman Fulton versus Tommy Dreamer. Sammy's Attack Dog versus Old Man Hardcore. Tommy gets caught in a bear hug but bites Fulton's head. He tries it again with a turnbuckle mount, but Fulton goes for a powerbomb, but Old Man Dreamer with a Rana over the top to the outside. Fulton crotches Tommy on the rail after he went headfirst into the post. Inside the ring, Fulton hits a sidewalk slam for 2. Fulton misses a diving headbutt, Tommy with jabs and a bionic elbow, then a cutter, but Fulton doesn't go down. DDT onto Fulton. Dreamer goes outside and gets a kendo stick. Fulton dodges the stick and hits a end of days for the win. Dreamer looked better than I thought he would, and I love how he keeps giving back to wrestling by putting guys over. Fulton was okay, nothing too impressive. After the match, Fulton goes to attack Dreamer, but Willie Mack hits him with a chair. All of OVE come out and pound on Willie Mack. Rich Swann runs down and backhand springs off the ropes and hits the Chris brothers with a double cutter. Sammy chokes Swann with his bat, then hits him with the Cactus Driver 97. Sammy sets Dreamer's arm in a chair and bashes it with a bat, then tells Rich Swann, "I love you, little brother," before nailing him in the stomach with the bat. I have no idea how Swann is going to overcome OVE at Rebellion. We get a RVD promo, nothing really of note. Still glad he's here in Impact, but the promos are whatever. Another Diener promo, one is on a tractor, the other says this is Impact Wrestling, go big or go home, and they're on a huge tractor. Neat. Mack and Swann are talking to the doctor about Dreamer. Swann thanks Mack and leaves. Killer Kross shows up and says, "Are you starting to hear the music? Every time you save Rich, he gets the glory." Mack says, "Don't you have Johnny to bother or Moose? You have Moose running around here looking like the uncle who wasn't invited to the Christmas party asking about potato salad." If he talks about his music again, he's going to show him his favorite kind, as he will go all hip-hop, hibbity-hibbity hip-hop all over Kross. Max had enough of Kross's meddling with his affairs and challenges him for a match next week. Match 4, Madison Rayne versus Taya. Taya says she's not wrestling and she left Canada for a reason, because it's weak and is most known for being apologetic. Rayne doesn't allow her to leave. Taya drops her with a reverse X Factor, but Rayne sends her out with a head scissors. Taya goes to leave again, but Jordynne Grace comes out and sends Taya back into the ring. Rayne rolls Taya up as Taya is distracted by Grace and gets a pinfall victory over the women's champion. Taya leaves infuriated. This was a nice little segment showing that Johnny Impact isn't the only scumbag in the family, and built toward Grace versus Taya at Rebellion. Madison has been getting lucky with these distracting type wins. I'd like to see an actual match for her though. Johnny is interviewed at his home. Johnny Impact says he's not apologizing and he's doing this for him and no one else. Cage is one of the best athletes this business has ever seen. He can do almost everything Johnny can, except think. He says Johnny Bravo is whatever he says he is, and right now he's being upgraded from a stooge referee. Cage will not think anything through. Johnny says he can get to anyone in Bryan's life, and that is Cage's downfall. Johnny knows how to keep his title, and at Rebellion, Cage will find that out, and he will never live up to his potential because he doesn't understand what the business is about. Johnny is getting much better at promos. He didn't stop and start, and it felt genuinely scathing. Soon thereafter, Cage grips up Don Callis, and Callis tells him they're working on it and have a plan. As Cage leaves, Don calls Scott D'Amore and says he's going to kill him. Scott answers, and Don says, "Just get in your car and go to the next town, because Cage has gone nuts. They don't have a plan." Scott says, "That giant moron is backstage looking for me." Cage comes and harasses Scott, But out of nowhere, Lance Storm breaks it up and says to conduct yourself like a professional and have some integrity. Cage suggests Storm as the ref, and Scott says yes. Nice addition to the match at Rebellion. Lance Storm, the man of integrity, will be right down the middle. You can bet on that. Then we get the main event, the tag title match between the Lucha Brothers versus Eddie Edwards and Eli Drake. This match, like most Lucha Brothers matches, was full of high impact and fast-paced offense. Eli and Eddie get some offense in, a Blue Thunder bomb to Pentagon and an avalanche suplex to Phoenix for 2. Diving knee, burning hammer combo on Phoenix for 2 as Pentagon breaks the pin. Double super kicks to Eli's head for 2. LAX come down, but Phoenix keeps them at bay. Eli misses Pentagon with the kendo stick, which leads to a double stomp cradle pile driver for the win. After the match, LAX and Lucha Brothers brawl all the way to the back. In the ring, Eddie wants to help Eli up, but he gets up on his own. Eddie goes for a handshake, but Eli hugs him. Then, Eli attacks Eddie from behind, grabs the stick, and smashes Eddie over and over again. Eli is such a sore loser. This show built toward the Rebellion pay-per-view quite well, had great promos, especially from Tessa and Johnny. This was a fun and exciting show. This episode of Impact gets an A. It is also worth noting, Lance Storm was on F4D podcast with Don Callis and discussed the difference in booking between WWE and Impact. Quote, going back to when Dave mentioned that he thought the show's better than Raw and SmackDown, and obviously not every element of the show is better, and it's subjective at that, but I think creative, and that's what you were talking about, is really Impact's strong suit. Because obviously you don't have the big arena, you don't have 8 to 10,000 people in the Settle Dome for Impact. So if you want to tune in and go, oh, that's not as big as WWE, okay, yeah, it's not. But creatively, I think it's really strong, and that's the thing that I found with having to pick it up after not watching for a while a couple of months ago. And it's really easy to follow. You know immediately who the good guys are, who the top guys are, who the middle guys are. And I think part of this, and this is the real crazy thing with wrestling in this generation, is that there is the constant, it's live television. We've got to do our live show every week. And I think creatively that is one of the downfalls. And I think the fact that you guys generally do somewhere between 3 and 5 weeks of tapings in a bunch, it's like NXT. Everyone says NXT is better creatively than the main roster, and they do it too because I saw it firsthand when I came to Scott's house in Windsor the night before the first night of tapings. We all sat down and Jimmy ran through the 4 weeks of shows, and it's like you got to make them make sense and follow a cohesive line. And once you start, you can, as you said, tweak and adjust little things, but you can't go off on tangents anymore. We got 4 weeks put together, and I think that's Impact's strength because each show connects to the one before, and it's setting up the one after, and you don't have that. Someone has a quick idea, oh, let's do this, and you do it because it's live, and then next week it's like, oh shit, that changes what we plan long term, and it makes Impact creatively much easier to follow, and I think much easier to get into. Well said, Lance Storm. As for that, this has been this week's episode of Impressions of Impact. I hope you enjoyed.